Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our 2024 read-along of Frank Herbert's masterpiece, Dune. We are well over halfway through this book, and boy, oh boy, do I need to talk about it today. If one is having a crappy, annoying, irritating day, nitpicking at you from every little corner of existence, what better way to ease that than to talk about Dune for a little while? So, we are following the adventures here of Paul Atreides, heir to the destroyed house of Atreides, and his mother, the Lady Jessica, an adept of the Bene Gesserit. And we have seen that they have used their abilities, their outstandingness, to gain a place among the Fremen. And that place has now been cemented because Paul has actually been called out, Jessica has been called out, and Paul has killed a man as her champion. And he's obeyed all of the rituals and done everything right. And also, there's a pretty strong suggestion that the man himself, a Fremen named Jamis, was not all that well liked. Uh, Paul has now demonstrated to the watching Fremen that he is extremely physically capable in battle, even though he's just a boy. He and his mother still have to learn the all-encompassing ways of the Fremen in the desert, the all-encompassing power of moisture, and how precious water is. But those things can be learned. When Stilgar, a leader of the Fremen, tells the Lady Jessica earlier in an earlier chapter that that you won't know these things unless you're trained with them from the cradle, that's not exactly true. There are plenty of examples of people, even on Earth, who have learned very similar strictures in very little time. And in this chapter that we're reading today, we see that that is happening. Lady Jessica is no slouch. She is learning how to do these things. Paul seems to know a lot of it instinctively, whether that's a part of his awakening cellular memory or his prescience or whatever it is. The two of them are adapting well. And the chapter that we're reading today immediately follows the chapter in which Paul kills Jamis. And it is a downgrade in enthusiasm and excitement from that chapter. It's the funerary remains of Jamis. What are the customs of the Fremen when it comes to honoring the dead? They parcel out Jamis's personal possessions. Each person gives a small tribute as they take one of his possessions. They apportion his water, the water that's been extracted from his dead body. There are interesting moments in there. The most interesting of which is that Paul, of course, is a stranger to Fremen ways, and it's clearly to him that he is expected to take something that belonged to Jamis, in this case his musical instrument, and also briefly say how Jamis was a friend of his. But the reason Jamis isn't there is because Paul killed him. Seems incomprehensible to him that he would say such a thing. What he manages to do, he manages to say something. He says, Jamis taught me that when you kill someone, you kill a little bit of yourself as well. The real thing that makes an impression is that he also cries. Which the Fremen view as giving water to the dead. They don't even cry. They value water so much that they don't even do that. That bowls them over. And not so much Paul, who seems lost in his own reveries about his increasingly powerful visions of the future, but Jessica is noticing all of these things. She was trained by the Bene Gesserit. She was trained in cultural and quasi-religious societal patterns. So all of this is data for her as a means to accumulate personal safety for her and her son, and maybe a little more than that. The book is the chapter is notable for two things, really. One is a brief moment when Paul takes up Jami's musical instrument and briefly wonders about Gurney Halleck, who was, in addition to being a war master for his father, Duke Leto Atreides, was also a troubadour. We haven't had much from Paul or Jessica wondering what has happened to the rest of the members of House Atreides. They know the fates of some of them, but they don't know the fates of all. But it's a brief aside. The other very important thing to notice in this chapter is the way it ends. When the Fremen take Paul and Jessica to the last thing they expected to find, a massive subterranean lake. A massive reservoir of water that has been walled away from what Stilgar refers to as little makers. And neither Jessica nor Paul picks up on it. They don't wonder what he's talking about when he says that. But the water has been walled away and is being steadily collected. Thousands of liters of water are being steadily collected both here and in lots of other locations. because the Fremen, as Stilgar says, know to the last drop exactly how much water they need to change the balance of Dune, to change the planet Arrakis, so that yes, there will be deserts for the sandworms to live in and make the spice, but there will also be water for everybody, rivers and canals. Uh, Jessica notes that this vision is, she links it with the imperial planetologist Liet Kynes. Of course, she's entirely right to do that. It was his vision and the vision of his father that has given these people a dream to believe in. A long, long dream to believe in. Stilgar says that not his grandchildren nor their grandchildren will see the fruition of it, but they know that it will happen. They trust it. They trust the science of it, that they can interrupt and change the geological patterns of Dune and make it a living, green, water-filled planet in time. It's their cultural mission. And Jessica is concentrating on the fact that this is a dream. This is a mission for a people. It's a very canny thing to do. It's a very Bene Gesserit thing to do, right? The Bene Gesserit, the society to which she belongs, are also big fans of multi-generational, long-term plans that no living member will see come to fruition. It's very similar. It's very much along those lines of searching for something like the Kwisatz Haderach. So she reacts to it that way. Paul is not reacting all that much, and she's noticing this. He seems to be keeping his judgment mostly to himself. She doesn't realize why, but she suspects it might have to do with his increased prescience, with the increased the increased dreams and visions that he's having of the future. Baby, you are upstaging the show. Are you gonna go over there? Huh? Gonna go over to your chair? Huh? There you go. Paul's reaction is different. It's an odd reaction. I think that it betokens an earlier draft of this book, something that Herbert decided not really to pursue. We're told in the very end of this chapter, Paul sat silently in the darkness, a single stark thought dominating his awareness. My mother is my enemy. She does not know it, but she is. She is bringing the jihad. She bore me. She trained me. She is my enemy. I don't get that. I don't think that's much followed up on. But Paul, the thing that's preoccupying him that he hasn't really conveyed to Jessica is jihad, is the fact that more and more clearly he can see the banners of House Atreides being carried in bloodthirsty conquest throughout the galaxy by legions of unstoppable Fremen warriors. And he wants to stop it. He is horrified by that vision. He doesn't want it to happen. I must stop it from happening somehow. Those elements have been struck before. That this chapter doesn't do much. I think it was just Herbert likes to world build. But the next few chapters, take us. First of all, they change the scene, and they also take us to much more action-packed goings on. So we'll wrap this chapter up for now. I was right; it did make me feel a little better. And we'll be back next time. So I'll see you all then. Thank you, Book 2.